Chapter 9. Shadow's plan is dumb, stupid, and bad. Okay. There are so many problems with the scene that we are about to cover that I could unironically rant about it for over an hour and not repeat myself once. But I shall once again attempt to restrain myself here, and yet I'll probably still go on about it for an hour. So, where did we last leave off in reality land? I don't blame you if you've already forgotten, because we've spent a lot of time on irrelevant flashbacks that have little if nothing to do with the actual plot. All right, so Shadow got a nightmare, and he knows Black Doom must be behind it. Now, how does Shadow know that the Black Arms caused it, or that it has anything to do with the Black Arms, despite all of them being dead, or that the Ark is the place to investigate? Well, the answer is he just does. So shut up and don't think about it, because you're not owed a clear explanation. In case it wasn't obvious, that I have so many problems with this plan. So many I might not be able to cover them all, but I can certainly try. So let us start with the very premise of this plan. And that's why does Shadow even need to use a space shuttle? Can't he just, I don't know, use chaos control to teleport himself there? At least that was my first thought. But upon further reflection, it's kind of more complicated than that. So now I'm going to establish what chaos control is for anyone unaware. So what is chaos control? Chaos control was a concept introduced into the Sonic canon in Sonic Adventure 2, although one could make the argument that it is actually an extension and fleshing out of already established concepts that were already a thing since the beginning. In short, chaos control is an ability that allows its user to teleport across distances instantaneously, or zip through space super fast, or stop time. Look, it's not very consistent. Let's just say chaos control allows one to bend the rules of space and time and call it a day. But the one constant rule of chaos control is that in order to perform it, you need a chaos emerald, except for all those times Shadow performs it without a chaos emerald. Okay, yeah, chaos control is a bit of a mess, not gonna lie. We generally see chaos control with a single emerald transport 1, 2, maybe even 3 people and everything on them. But one of the most impressive chaos controls in the main canon was when Sonic and Shadow, in their super forms, teleported the massive space colony Ark and everything inside it from atmospheric entry back safely into Earth's orbit. And that required the power of all 7 emeralds and probably even the Master Emerald too, for all we know. So while I don't think it's specifically established anywhere that having more emeralds in your possession extends the range and limits of what chaos control can do, I think it's safe to assume that the more emeralds equals bigger range of distance and raises the limits of how much mass you can transport. So back to Dark Beginnings, Shadow has the yellow Chaos Emerald in his possession, so he can use chaos control. He even does it a couple times during the action sequences, but he only ever does it for combat maneuvers and never for transportation. So if Shadow needs to get to the Ark, why doesn't he use chaos control to get there as fast as possible? Why go through all the effort of securing a shuttle, launching it, traveling to the Ark where it's orbiting the planet, and dock it? All of that costs time. Time Shadow may not even have. Why use a slow space shuttle to get to the Ark and give your enemies time to react and more time to prepare defenses, when you could just teleport there with a snap of your fingers and catch them off guard? This did not need to be a plot hole, and Dark Beginnings absolutely needed to explain this in order to justify its plot. Just saying, in dialogue, that Shadow would need more than 1 emerald to get to the Ark, or that the Ark was currently at a point in its orbit where it's outside the range of a 1 emerald chaos control, would have explained everything away. And you could do that in 1 line of unobtrusive exposition. But unfortunately, Ian has better things that he believes Dark Beginnings exposition needs to explain. Just you flipping wait. So moving from this point onward, let's say that Shadow getting to the Ark via chaos control is just off the table. Now, I need to stress that chaos control is not the only form of long distance teleportation in the Sonic canon, because there is another: space transporters. Space transporters are devices that were introduced into the Sonic canon in Sonic Adventure 2. We see the space transporter in action 3 times that I can care to remember. The first instance is when Rouge sneaks into the egg quarters in Sonic Adventure 2. She uses the access panel to verify the last location in the log and discovers Eggman recently used it to transport himself to the Ark, and then she uses it to follow him there. The second instance is later in Sonic Adventure 2, when Eggman and Shadow are in the egg quarters, and Eggman discovers that Sonic and his group have a duplicate fake Chaos Emerald aboard the Ark. Remember that old chestnut? I'm sure it won't be relevant or come up again
For at least a couple more chapters.
Eggman formulates his counterattack and he uses the device to transport himself back to the Ark. Third instance is not from Sonic Adventure 2 actually, it's from Sonic 06. After Shadow takes out the Egg Cerberus at Wide Acropolis, he and Rouge use a space transporter inside of Eggman's base and end up in some random computer room with the painting of Elise hanging on the wall for some reason. So, with these three scenes to analyze, we can safely assume that you need a space transporter on both ends of your journey, one to initiate the transport and one as the destination, because we have two scenes of someone initiating the transport and one scene of someone exiting transport, and a teleporter platform was necessary for all instances. So with that, I feel like we can safely assume that there is a space transporter located on the Ark as well. And if there's a space transporter on the Ark, we can also assume that they are an established tentpole of transportation in the Sonic universe. And odds are that the space transporter on the Ark has been there for a while. Maybe it has been there since the Ark was constructed over 50 years ago, or maybe it was a more recent installation by G.U.N after the incident for quick transportation of G.U.N infantry as security robots. Regardless, if one wanted to get to the Ark on short notice, you would think that one would consider this as like an option. And if any space transporter can transport you to any other space transporter, then you probably wouldn't even have to raid an Eggman's bases in order to access one. Odds are that G.U.N has plenty, and Shadow could just ask to use one. I mean, the Black Arms returning would be a global security risk that they would like to be aware of and would be happy to assist with, right? And last time I checked, Shadow works directly with and for them. But that would require the midwit writing this to remember that space transporters existed to begin with, now wouldn't it? Again, this did not need to be a plot hole, but Dark Beginnings absolutely need to explain why Shadow doesn't even consider using a space transporter as an option, or why literally none of the characters ever acknowledge it as an option. Just you flipping wait. Just saying in dialogue that the Ark is in a blackout because of Black Doom's influence, and therefore the space transporter has no power and is non-functioning, would have explained everything away. And you could do that in one line of unobtrusive exposition. But forget that! Let's just pretend that space transporters aren't an option either for the sake of argument as well. Actually, this talk about asking G.U.N for help brings me directly to my next problem. A potential return of the Black Arms is the exact kind of global security risk that G.U.N should be informed of. So why didn't Shadow tell them? If the Black Arms have returned, why does Shadow think he'll be able to deal with it by himself in an afternoon? Last time he dealt with the Black Arms, they were a planetary invading force that required the full might of G.U.N, the Eggman Empire, and Sonic and Code to hold them back. I feel like it only makes all the sense in the world to inform them of what's happening. What if Shadow underestimates the situation and his not informing G.U.N of the threat as soon as it came to his attention caused thousands of avoidable casualties? I could have sworn that Shadow's thing was that he really cared about people deep down. But if that is the case, then his actions fail to reflect that, Ian. Wait, hold on a second. The Ark is G.U.N property, right? And it's actively surveyed and secured by G.U.N robots. So why doesn't Shadow just go to G.U.N at the very least to ask them to check their computers to see if there are any anomalies aboard the Ark, so that when he does go there, he knows what to look for and maybe has some knowledge as to what is even happening at all? Also, you should probably inform them what you're doing and what's happening, period, so that the G.U.N robot station there will actually help you instead of attacking you and getting in your way. Also, I'm sure that they have a space shuttle that you could just borrow, so you don't have to go through all of the effort of stealing one of Eggman's. But forget that too. Let's just pretend that any communication or cooperation with G.U.N is impossible. Oh, we are absolutely going to get there. But above all, going into the situation alone is quite possibly the stupidest out of all of these decisions. In case it wasn't already obvious to everyone, PTSD episode plus the arc being in view equals somehow Black Doom returned also equals sus as heck. You should bring backup just for that reason alone, Shadow. If this is a trap, which it obviously is one, then the chances of someone being able to respond fast enough to rescue you are comical. Especially because space transporters just aren't a thing anymore, apparently. I can't stress just how self-hindering Shadow's plan truly is. Hey, remember when Shadow was a mad scheming super chess master manipulator who was always 10 steps ahead and even outsmarted Eggman? Yeah, me neither.
Baby, the amnesia dropped his IQ!
So why does Shadow enact this definitionally idiotic plan? Well, because we needed a flashy action sequence where Shadow, Rouge, and Omega fight the Egg Funds and an Egg Brawler in the hidden base from SA2, because it's all the things that I know. Thank you, dopamine! But does this action sequence progress or benefit the story, characters, plot, or themes in any way? No, of course not. Who would even be stupid enough to want that? Clearly the only utility and a purpose an action sequence should ever serve is just to look really awesome. Actually, let me put a pin in that particular point. Don't worry, we'll be coming back to this. And all of this is not even mentioning the flipping elephant in the room, that Shadow didn't ask for Rouge's or Omega's help. Last time we left off the story of Shadow, Rouge, and Omega, they promised to have each other's backs no matter what. But never mind any of that. That was 18 years before. We could just ignore all of that, pretend it didn't happen, and no one in the audience will even notice apparently, and they'll actively excuse it by saying that all of it was part of an aborted timeline. So undoing the development is good, actually. Wait a minute, so why are Rouge and Omega even here again? So just as Shadow arrives at the hidden base and starts scrambling those Eggman's robots, Rouge and Omega show up.
Evening, handsome. Didn't expect to see you here.
Rouge, what are you doing here?
Just gathering some intel for G.U.N. What's your story?
Okay, so what intel? The answer to that is that you're not going to get one. Until episode 3, that is. So I guess you'll just have to wait. Actually, no, screw it. We're covering this now. In episode 3, we find out what the intel Commander Tower requested was on a blink and you'll miss it shot of a screen. What is it? Oh, just schematics of the Time Eater.
There comes a time in all forms of media consumption where you are so utterly bewildered by an event taking place that there are so many things wrong with it that you don't have words and you simply laugh.
Where do I even begin with this? Do I need to explain what's so irrevocably wrong here? I feel it's self-evident, but given the positive reception this prologue got, I'm going to have to explain everything that's wrong here, whether I feel it's necessary or not. So at the end of Sonic Colors, Sonic leaves Eggman for dead, and he gets sucked into a black hole.
Because Sonic is the kind of guy who believes in saving his enemies and does not believe in killing or prisons.
And Eggman finds himself drifting alone inside the void. Well, he was mostly alone. And then the Time Eater appeared, giving Eggman an exit and a powerful tool to rewrite time and erase his past failures.
If I had a nickel.
Notably, this was not premeditated. Before this, Eggman had no knowledge of the Time Eater whatsoever. I cannot stress enough that this turn of events was an accident. So how the frick did schematics of the Time Eater end up on one of Eggman's hard drives before he had ever encountered it? And how did Commander Tower know about the schematics so he could send Rouge after them? And why were they stored on a computer in a long irrelevant base that's just a supply depot? Sorry, I'm doing that thing that Ian clearly doesn't want me to do again, which is to actually pay attention to his chicken scratch. Clearly the food he has prepared on my plate is for staring, not for consumption. Obviously, the only proper way to engage with his work is to not think critically and just clap like a seal whenever I see a thing from the thing that I know. The time meter schematics are on one of Eggman's computers, and they would have had to have been put there by Eggman before he was even aware of the time meter's existence to begin with, unless classic Eggman put them there when he returned to the past. But then wouldn't modern Eggman have remembered that the time meter was a thing? And also this takes place on a timeline that hasn't been affected by the time meter's nonsense yet. So that can't be the explanation. Have I ever mentioned that I hate time travel? Because I really do hate time travel. And how would Commander Tower even know what Rouge should be looking for? Or that there was something to look for in the first place? Also, if Tower and Rouge both had foreknowledge of the time meter, then it was a pretty jerk move to not tell Sonic and his friends what was about to happen before they got sucked into white space during Sonic's birthday party. A lot of confusion could have been avoided.
This is all starting to feel just a bit character assassinating.
Also, and I do need to ask, what was the point of Eggman having data of the time meter on his computer that he canonically shouldn't? Having Tower magically know of his existence and having Rouge retrieve it and bring it back if this subplot ends in episode 3 of Dark Beginnings and never amounts to anything for the stories of Sonic Cross Shadow Generations. I can't stress enough that nothing comes of this. Tower, Rouge, and G.U.N don't use this information for anything. Not for planning, tactics, nothing. None of this is referenced, nor does it come up again. The only thing we achieved here was muddling the plot, muddling the characters, and muddling the already shamble-written cause and effect of the long-running Sonic canon. If this subplot, and I'm using the term subplot extremely loosely here, ends flipping nowhere, then why is it even here? Well, to get Rouge and Omega into the story and meet up with Shadow at the exact same location at the exact same time as him. Wait, hold on. So let me get this straight. So out of all of the physical locations Eggman could have stored these files that he couldn't have possibly have had, they were located on a terminal in the hidden base of all places. And of all the places Rouge could have looked, she guesses right and got the files from the hidden base. But not only that, she arrived at the hidden base at the exact same time as Shadow, despite the fact that Shadow was there for completely separate reasons that don't have anything to do with what Rouge is up to. On top of the fact that Shadow didn't even need to go to this specific location to achieve his completely unrelated goals. It could have gotten to the Ark in a myriad of other ways. It also could have gotten a shuttle in a myriad of easier ways.
I don't think that words could properly describe how contrived this is.
It's moments like this that make me wonder what the flipping purpose of any of this was. If the payoff as to why Rouge and Omega were at the same location as Shadow at the same time was going to be this lame and nonsensical, why not just cut out the middleman and have both of them follow Shadow deliberately because they care about him and are worrying that he's gone off the deep end again? It would have been better if they had just scrapped the retrieval of the time meter schematics entirely, and instead they could have had it so that Rouge and Omega heard Shadow was running around the glow in a frenzy and he hasn't called them, so they catch up to him at the hidden base and confront him and ask him what's wrong, and then they can help each other out, and then they help each other figure out what's going on. In this way, we would naturally establish through dialogue and character interaction that Rouge and Omega are Shadow's best friends, and they care about him enough to be worried for his well-being.
But no!
We couldn't have gotten any of that because that would do the unthinkable, awful job of actually telling us things about these people that would make sense and track with their pre-established characterizations. And those things aren't allowed anymore because the dialogue exchanges in the script we actually got are, Actually, let's talk about that now. So we need to do another aside. Don't worry, this will be short. Conversations are a thing that happen in reality, and I'm sure we are all intimately familiar with them. And since we are so familiar with them, we can very often spot when they feel off. Like an example of how conversations do not go like, "You're late for band practice again. If this happens again, you're out." "Yes, the weather sure is nice today." "I agree, bananas are delicious." Yeah, in case it wasn't already obvious, we've arrived at the point where the script starts going downhill. So, Shadow rushes into the hidden base from SA2. "Hey, remember the hidden base from SA2? As a quick explanation for the uninitiated, the hidden base was an Eggman's bases that he used during SA2's narrative. It was his base where he had some space shuttles and the aforementioned space transporter. He used this base to ping-pong himself between the Earth and the space colony arc over the course of the adventure. Oh yeah, also the hidden base was haunted by ghosts. I don't know why, it just was. It never factored into the plot or anything. I don't know what to tell you. I have theories, but you know, they're just theories. They don't mean jack. Anyway, back to the story of the thing we are actually covering. Shadow then dispatches some of those Eggman's robots guarding the hidden base before Rouge and Omega drop in because they ended up here at the exact same time and place despite their respective missions having nothing to do with each other.
Evening, handsome.
It's the dead of night, Rouge.
Didn't expect to see you here.
Rouge, what are you doing here?
Just gathering some intel for Gun. I convinced Omega to be my backup. What's your story?
I need a spacecraft to reach the Ark. I have reason to believe the Black Arms have returned.
Now, I want us to pause here. In this situation, what do you think the appropriate reaction to hearing that your best friend thinks the evil aliens that almost destroyed the world that one time are back? The aliens that everyone thought were extinct and personally paralyzed you and your friends with an airborne toxin before trying to eat all of you alive. Personally, my initial gut reaction would be something along the lines of, what? Are you crazy? You blew up the Black Comet and the core to their hive mind with the Eclipse Cannon. What do you mean they've returned? What does any of this have to do with getting to the Ark? Like, if someone says, I need to borrow your car so I can drive back to my house because I think my father, who's been dead for 11 years, magically came back to life. No sane person's immediate response would be,
No, you can't, because my car broke down.
because surely. The statement that requires immediate clarification is the part where someone who is 6 feet under is now suddenly alive, and your friend is talking about that as if it's a normal thing that just happened. You're seeing where I'm about to go with this, right?
Well, you're out of luck here. This is just a supply depot.
You should be terrified.
My goodness, the script is so inept. I can't stress enough that her immediate reaction to this brand new and existentially horrifying information is no reaction. Because that wasn't a reaction, not by any sensible definition at least. Because yes, clearly the statement that requires immediate addressing is not the outrageous claim that the Black Arms have returned. In fact, the idea that the Black Arms are back is not even worth her explicitly acknowledging in any fashion, at any point throughout the rest of this entire freaking storyline. And no, that's not a joke. I am dead serious. What is clearly more important is telling Shadow,
LOL, your ship is another castle.
Rouge, are you okay? Wait, I'm asking Rouge that question. Clearly the person it should be directed towards is the clown who wrote this. Hey, remember a minute or two ago where I said that the appropriate response Rouge should have had was, what are you talking about? Didn't you kill them all with a giant space laser? Well, when I said that, I was actually paraphrasing a line of Rouge actually said in Shadow Fall, the Sonic Universe comic art. Because just as an aside, the fact that Shadow Fall is more in keeping with the pre-established characterizations and continuity of the mainline canon, while Xiao Zhen's falls flat on its face in those regards, despite the fact that Zhen's is supposed to be canon and Fall's an Elseworld story, on top of the fact that Zhen's is merely ripping off ideas and concepts directly from Fall, but worse, despite Zhen's coming out after an entire decade of hindsight, and all of this time, I haven't even mentioned the fact that Fall was a story also written by, guess who, Ian Flynn, is an entire layered cake of irony that is not lost on me. And it is safe to say that this will not be the last time I compare Shadow Gens to Shadow Fall, mostly because the comparisons practically write themselves. And can you believe, after all this time complaining about this one line, that I haven't even touched the bad part yet? You see, Shadow's a moron, and Rouge needs to correct him, because don't you know, there aren't ships here anymore. It's just a supply depot now, and if Shadow wasn't an idiot, he'd know that, and he wouldn't have wasted valuable time coming here in the first place. Because as we all know, supply depots are widely known for their complete lack of transport infrastructure. Hang on, what the fudge? Don't you need transport methods on hand at a supply depot in order to transport said supplies to other locations? Also, like, Eggman's most recent plan was to build a giant amusement park in space.
Rouge, I think his supply depots would have access to space transportation.
But I just I'm here to get a ship.
Well, you're out of luck. This is just a supply depot now.
Rouge, I ask. What does that have to do with anything?
It means there are no ships, you dummy.
What part of a place being a supply depot means there are no ships? I don't remember that being in the definition of the term. Hey, remember the egg breaker from Shadow 05? I know that sounded like a non sequitur, but in case you haven't been paying attention, that's just how this entire freaking prologue is structured. The entire thing is a flipping non sequitur. So I guess we're just gonna have to put a pin in this conversation.
Take it out.
And the egg breaker is now defeated. Yay! Wait, wasn't that thing destroyed years ago? Oh wait, sorry. I forgot that Eggman now maintains a collection of all of his failed mechs for no discernible reason other than nostalgias. Wait, hold on. I thought the Egg Breaker was a mech. How is it fighting without a pipe? Actually, I'm just gonna let this go because we really don't have the time. This critique is already clocked up to the 2+ hour mark and we have yet to escape the flipping 15-minute webisode prologue. Something that's more worth commenting on is just how pointless all of this was. Shadow came here to get a ship and fought a bunch of robots to get it, only for said ship to have never have existed in the first place. And I guess the space transporter is gone too? But there I go assuming again that Ian remembers that they exist. So what was the point of having him do any of this if it was just one giant dead end that wastes his and the audience's time? It's not like he's up against a ticket clock or anything. The only thing we get from the scene as is the information that Rouge and Omega exist. And that Shadow is now going to go somewhere else to get a ship for real this time. So, we could have skipped all of this. If you were to watch episode 1 and then skip to episode 3, you would miss nothing. So, what was the thought Rouge was holding on to?
Hold that thought.
12 seconds later.
Now about this spacecraft. I can take you to a ship, but in return, you're going to have to promise to come to Sonic's birthday party.
Once upon a time, I was one of the people who thought this line was cute. I am not one of them anymore. Rouge, did you not hear the part where I said that the black arms are coming back? This is urgent. We don't have time for a stupid birthday party. The entire world's at flipping stake.
Oh, come on. It'll be funny. All you need to do is take some time out of your busy schedule tomorrow morning.
The party is tomorrow morning?
Yes.
You think that I could pilot a ship to the Ark, resolve the return of the Black Arms, and come back to Earth before morning? You also want me to bake 15 cakes while I'm at it.
No, that's the spirit, Shadow.
I am also in this scene. Do I really need to say anything else? I feel like that skit I just did summed it up pretty well. Oh crap! I completely forgot Omega was here. I don't think I've acknowledged his existence for the past I don't know how many minutes. I wonder if that's going to become a recurring trend. Shadow then sighs in annoyed exasperation, and Rouge takes that as a yes because she's a self-centered, inconsiderate jerk now who doesn't care about his feelings, boundaries, or the fact that he believes the world is in immediate danger. Like, actually listen to this exchange again.
I need a spacecraft to reach the Ark. I have reason to believe the Black Arms have returned.
I can take you to a ship, but in return, you're going to have to promise to come to Sonic's birthday party. I'll take that as a yes.
Gee, you can really tell they're best friends.
Rouge, she's phenomenal in this game. I love how endearing the friendship between her and Shadow is. Like, even the little act in Dark Beginnings in the intro of the game, where she's just kind of pushing him to go to the party. Look, could you be social for once in your life?
Wait, what?
If you listening at home don't particularly like that rationale, then think of it this way. She's trolling him. She has the one bit of info. She has the one thing he needs, and the only thing she will trade it for is the one thing she knows is going to rile him, and that's hysterical to her. The authorial intent is a little bit of both. She knows it's healthy for him to make some connections, but also, oh, he's going to hate this, and it's going to be hilarious. Hey, Omega, I made him go to the birthday.
Oh, you're not joking.
All right, we need to pause for a second so that I can explain what the real problem is here. You know how people say that there are no bad ideas, only bad executions? Well, I have never seen such an apt microcosm of this saying in my entire life watching and analyzing media. Now, the idea of Rouge playfully suggesting that Shadow should attend Sonic's birthday, maybe even forcing him to go so that he would be outside in the sun and actually interact with others for once in his life, is not a bad idea in a vacuum. In any other context, this would be a fine idea to jumpstart an interesting dialogue between these two characters. I really need to stress that the problem with this scene, and the rest of this entire flipping storyline for that matter, isn't that the individual ideas and elements at play are bad in and of themselves. It is how they are ordered, constructed, and executed into the final product. The problem isn't that Rouge wants Shadow to socialize by pressuring him to go to the party. If I were her, I'd probably do that too. And the problem isn't even that she is amused by the idea of pushing him out of his comfort zone. The idea also amuses me in a vacuum. The problem is context. And context is everything. And the context of Rouge pressuring Shadow to go to the party is...
I need a spacecraft to reach the Ark. I have reason to believe the Black Arms have returned.
I can take you to a ship, but in return, you're going to have to promise to come to Sonic's birthday party. I'll take that as a yes.
Tone deaf. The context is tone deaf. Because apparently she thinks Shadow can stop the return of the Black Arms while in orbit of Earth and attend Sonic's birthday party at the same time. And I really don't feel like I should have to explain the problem any further than that. Rouge has suddenly lost her ability to read the flipping room and her ability to use her brain, which is notable because her character used to be quite adept at doing both of those exact things that she is no longer able to do for some reason. But I guess characters can only be as smart as the person who writes them. And this entire problem would be fixed if you just restructured the order of operations that is this conversation. Just have Rouge ask Shadow if he wants to go to the party before Shadow says anything. Then have Shadow tell her that he believes the Black Arms are returning. Then have Rouge, actually react to that earth-shattering information. Then have Rouge say something along the lines of, if you're right, blow them the heck. But if it's a false alarm, I want you to come down to the party because you need to socialize. I mean, the scene still has problems. Like most of the ones I've covered so far were not addressed there. But the conversation and character problems I've been ranting about were absolutely fixed with that.
Insert comment about Ian needing to hire an editor here.
So in case I haven't made myself clear already, this conversation is completely broken and this entire scene is completely broken. I can't stress enough that this is how we are introducing Rouge and Omega into this story. Remember how at the beginning of episode 1, we introduced Maria and Shadow in a scene where we learned things about them through their interactions with each other? Remember that deleted scene I covered where we learned things about Shadow, Maria, and Abe through their interactions with each other? I know that sounds like the absolute bear flipping minimum, but that's because it is. But I ask you, what do we really learn about Rouge and Omega from their interactions with Shadow in this scene? Well, we learned that Omega has the character traits of wanting to explode things and being in the room. And that Rouge is flirty, works for the government, is completely insufferable, and has no qualms about biting the hand that feeds her for no reason. Oh yeah, I haven't gotten to that last part now, have I? Notably, if you had no prior knowledge of who these characters were beforehand, would you even know that these two are Shadow's teammates, let alone that they're his best friends that would die in a heartbeat for him? The answer is no. Because Ian was too preoccupied giving Omega funny yelling and giving Rouge sassy backtalk exposition. He could have used this scene as a point where these three have a genuine conversation about how to tackle their current predicament while supporting each other. But we had an action scene and exposition quota to fill, apparently. I really can't stress enough how bad the exposition in this scene is. Do we really need Rouge to specifically explain that she convinced Omega to be her backup? The fact that he is here to begin with means that the audience and Shadow could have figured that out on their own. Just saying. Also, why is he even here? Omega's contribution to the scene, and this entire flipping storyline for that matter, is zilch. Literally nothing would change if he was cut entirely. And that fact alone is extremely sad given that I actually quite like Omega and have always thought he was criminally underutilized. Also, this line achieves the opposite of its intention. If Rouge had said nothing, it would be assumed that Omega is her partner and that they always work together. But having her specify that she had to convince Omega to be her backup implies that no real relationship exists between them. Like they're both mercenaries that are working together right now just because it's convenient. It just sounds so impersonal. Also, she says that she is gathering some intel for G.U.N, and that she convinced Omega to come along, which gives the impression that Omega isn't a G.U.N agent, which would be very stupid and dumb. And wouldn't it be just hilarious and terrible if they retcon that for no reason whatsoever? Because otherwise Rouge would have said, Omega and I are just gathering some intel for G.U.N. Do I really need to talk about the supply depot line again? Hey, did you know that this is tying to Start Generations? Remember the birthday party? I remember the birthday party. There is just a strange lack of anything resembling sincerity or history in these interactions, isn't there? Nothing here feels genuine. For all of the fault of episode 1's opening, it at least knew how to properly establish and convey sentimentality and friendship between characters. Heck, for all of Sonic Frontier's many faults, I wasn't questioning whether or not Sonic, Amy, Knuckles, and Tails are supposed to be friends or not. I mean, how am I supposed to tell that these three are friends and what their precise dynamics with each other are if you as the writer don't put any effort into it? But oh my goodness, Ian gave these guys snappy quips and cool maneuvers. Oh boy, that's almost as good as letting them be actual characters. Then Rouge is like,
hey Shadow, let's backstab our employers, blow up millions of taxpayers paid military assets, and steal a spaceship.
Then Shadow responds by saying,
that's absurd. Whatever it is you want to do, you can do it alone.
Except no! Shadow doesn't say any of that or anything close because the camera cuts away dramatically in the middle of the conversation in a vain attempt to trick the audience from noticing that there is no response that Shadow could have possibly given that wouldn't assassinate his character. Because with this story, really needed to include was the favorite writing trick of the Rings of Power. Wait, hold on a second. I just realized something else. You see, Rouge has information that Shadow needs, but she'll only tell him where to find a ship if he promises to go to a birthday party, even though he can't go because he's going to be busy putting the flipping ship he needs to use. But let's just accept this as if it makes sense. Where is this ship Rouge knows about then? Oh, just a gun base? Oh wow, Shadow didn't already know that? He didn't know that G.U.N has spaceships? Rouge thought that Shadow didn't know G.U.N had spaceships that he could use. I genuinely cannot tell which of these two characters is the stupider one. Also, if Rouge and Shadow work for G.U.N, then why do they need to raid the base? Again, why can't they just ask for the ship? Actually, no, we're saving that for next time. Stay tuned. Okay, that was a long chapter, but that means we have a bunch of things here in the character notes to knock out. Is reckless because he thinks that he can deal with the return of an invading army alone in an afternoon, despite this entire thing obviously being a trap set for him specifically. Forgot that space transporters exist. Refuses / forgets to use literally all of the resources at his disposal. He don't want no help from G.U.N or puny twins. Is a moron who runs into dead ends head first, hates birthdays, is okay with backstabbing his employer, I guess, because he got convinced off screen. Oh yeah. I should be fair here. Shadow saves his buddy even when she is in the middle of insulting his intel agents. Okay. Reality land for Abe knows about things that no one should know about because they haven't happened yet. New character, Rouge. Oh boy, Rouge. I guess she just knew about the Time Eater, but didn't tell or warn Sonic and Co. about it at any point. K is flirty, is very lucky, works for the government, has selective hearing, thinks dead things coming back to life is another day ending in Y, I guess. Thinks supply depot equals no ships. Thinks Shadow can be in two places at once, or thinks Shadow should go to a party instead of saving the world. Pick your poison. Is a troll. Ian's words, not mine. Can't read rooms or use thinky bits. Also forgot that space transporters exist. Casually conspires to backstab her employer for no reason. Thinks that Shadow doesn't know that G.U.N has ships that he could use. Okay, new character, Omega. Likes pew pew boom boom. Is convincible. Calls dibs. Is in the room. Maybe. He kind of gets lost in the edit. You know, in retrospect, the original post I made when episode 2 of Dark Beginnings first came out, it's aged surprisingly well. Such a disappointment when it came out. I'll just read it for you. I'm currently editing the video for the episode 1 review, and episode 2 is already out. Just goes to show how fast I work. So, episode 2 was an episode. My excitement is through the roof. I literally can't wait to see how the next episode will make everything worse. I mean, it more exciting! In all seriousness, episode 1 was fine, and I liked it the first time through, and my opinion only soured once I had slept on it. Episode 2, by contrast, was complete agony, and made me question why I'm even bothering. I've been putting off getting a pre-order of Sonic Cross Shadow Generations for a while now because the final horizon burned me. But episode 1 made me consider it because it was an improvement over previous things the games have been putting out. And at the very least, it would make good content for the channel. But now, if episode 3 and the game proper are on par with episode 2's quality, I really don't know if I want to bother. But I'm in too deep now, I guess. Not that this is torture. I am having fun. I just wish it wasn't at the expense of a franchise I care so deeply about. Hopefully part 1 will be out by next week. So see you guys then, I guess. And hopefully I can see you guys relatively sooner than later. I can't believe I stretched an episode 2 review out into like an hour and a half. Like over an hour and a half, my goodness. 5-minute episode. What's going on there? I would say that the episode 3 review, which will be part 4, will be shorter. But at this point, I can't really make promises. But in any case, see you guys later. Bye.